Pues hola y bienvenidos a una nueva entrevista en el Ufology para código-oculto.com y para el canal de Enigma. And from now on, this interview is going to be in English, and then I will add titles or something. But here sitting with me is Mr. Hugh Newman. Really nice to meet you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you, yeah.
Okay, so let's go ahead. First question. Since your topic on this edition of the Congress refers to this, can you give us an overview of the key discoveries and insights on Gobekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe?
Sure, yeah, Gobekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe, they're two sites in southeast Turkey. They're located near the ancient town of Şanlıurfa, and they've been now dated to about 11,600 years ago. And they're hugely sophisticated, very large sites with multiple megalithic stone circles, enclosures, and different features with beautiful carvings. And basically, before these were discovered back in the 1990s, there was nothing on the planet that old that was that sophisticated. So this is a whole new kind of civilization that's been discovered, and it goes back to the time of almost like Atlantean times. You know, we're talking like 7,000 years older than Stonehenge, 6,500 years older than the Giza pyramids. So from today, going back, they're twice as old as anything we kind of know.
Fantastic. Then, well, actually, this is Gobekli is considered one of the most significant archaeological findings of our time. But what can we learn from its origins?
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is that they think it could be older as well, which is even weirder. And so they now know that it was right at the end of a giant cataclysm, like the Younger Dryas impact event, and all the devastation. It kind of occurred immediately when the weather started warming up. But the thing is, it's so sophisticated with beautiful carvings and abstract artistic imagery and statues and technology that people don't know where the people came from, how they created this site. So it's a big mystery. They suddenly appeared out of nowhere. This huge amount of innovation and technology and stone carving mastery, which just should not exist at this early epoch.
I see. Well, also, as per my understanding, this may have been built by nomads, the people on a settlement, which is also super weird.
Yeah, I mean, they say that it was hunter-gatherers who kind of suddenly constructed these sites, but it doesn't make sense because no known hunter-gatherers in this time, you know, had this kind of technology. They had the qualities of craftsmanship to build such vast sites. And you got to put this in perspective. Like, we have Stonehenge, for instance. It's one stone circle. Yeah, Gobekli Tepe, there's 20 of these stone circles, the size of Stonehenge. At Karahan Tepe, which is even more interesting, in my opinion, we have it's even bigger than Gobekli Tepe, maybe twice the size. And now they've discovered potentially 12 more sites, equal sized, all across this huge area. And no one to this day has any understanding. I mean, they're still digging them up because these sites were completely buried at the end of their use. And so this is why they're only just being discovered. And so, yeah, to put it in perspective, these are remarkable. And to say that hunter-gatherers or nomads build them just doesn't quite make sense.
Absolutely not. Well, also, could you expand on the evidence of the earliest written language that has been discovered in the region?
Yeah, well, they found at Gobekli Tepe, this is the research of J.J. Ainsworth and also Robert Schoch and others. They found certain types of carvings on certain symbols on some of the statues, and they found that potentially these are later known as the Luwian language or the Hittite language. That wasn't until 8,000 years later, but they found these symbols which are the same in these two different eras, one from 12,000 years ago, one from about 4,000, 5,000 years ago. And so this proves that they were probably trying to develop a written language even at this age. And it hasn't quite been proved yet, but it seems it was more of a symbolic language. But again, people, where did this come from? I mean, where did these ideas come from? It's almost like, people claim there's like ancient aliens, it's Atlantis, it's like Lemuria. No one knows. It just came out of nowhere. There's a very small amount of information before that. There's only a few sites that are a little bit older, further to the east. But yeah, this is pretty important stuff.
And I guess we can only speculate at this point, right? Now, also, I know that you've mentioned some kind of a solstice alignment on Karahan Tepe.
Yeah, this is back in December 2021. Myself and JJ Ainsworth visited Karahan Tepe, which is the kind of second most important site. Gobekli Tepe is probably the most important. It's a very large site, very unusual. It's carved, a lot of it is carved directly out of bedrock limestone. So it's very intricate, very detailed, and they carved these pits and chambers with these kind of upright stones carved out of bedrock with this head protruding out of one side, called the pillar shrine or structure AB. And there's also a whole stone, like a window, going in one direction, carved out of rock, like natural rock with a hole in it. And we always question, what is that there for? And then when we went there on December the 20th, 2021, at sunrise, the sun, as it rises, after about 10 minutes, it shines through this particular hole and illuminates the head, the stone head that's been carved out. And this strip of light kind of slowly moves around. As the sun moves, comes through the hole, kind of illuminates the head over a 45-minute period. So clearly this was designed to mark the winter solstice. There are other alignments there, like the equinoxes, and we've just been there a few days ago, actually, and recorded equinox sunrise because the head gets illuminated through a channel facing east. And also we have a summer solstice sunset alignment discovered by Andrew Collins in a different area of the site, structure AA, or the pit shrine. And that is where the sun sets on the summer solstice, directly in line with it. And the Milky Way, 2 hours later, rises up, vertical on the horizon. So it was like this phenomena taking place at these different times of year. But specifically, we've got direct observational proof that this is the earliest ever solstice alignment anywhere recorded on the planet.
And then it always also happens on this kind of settlements or archaeological sites, does it?
Yeah, you get a few. I mean, we're now finding more alignments at some of the other sites in the area, but we know like Stonehenge, we know that has a summer solstice alignment. We know Karnak in Egypt has a winter solstice alignment. We know that Newgrange in Ireland also has a very similar winter solstice sunrise. Again, that goes through a whole stone, illuminates the chamber like this does at Karahan Tepe. And so it's very, very strange, because if this is the case, then this is by far not only the earliest evidence of them recording the movement of the sun and the stars and things like this, but also we have to question why they were doing it. Why did they suddenly decide to start doing this? And were they recording other great cycles of the stars, of the Milky Way, of the planets, and things like this? We've also found evidence connecting, they were following Venus through the sky, also Scorpius constellation, this is Andrew Collins' research, and also Cygnus in Deneb as well, which is the kind of area of the Milky Way with the kind of dark rift. And so, all these different cultures like Stonehenge, Egypt, the Maya, and others, it's now known that the civilization of Karahan Tepe and Gobekli Tepe is definitely the first people ever to be recording the movements of the sky and marking it and creating it in stone structures.
You're asking yourself, why did they do it? What's your personal take on that?
Yeah, I think there's two things. I think it was like a religious, spiritual, ceremonial, annual kind of cycle they were working with. Also, this is the time when they were starting to develop agriculture, animal domestication, things like this. And it was partly about survival. They had to kind of know the times of the year accurately to plant their crops. But also, we're talking about, they were probably very shamanic. We know there's good evidence now that they were taking psychedelic kind of plant medicines and things like this. It's pretty sure they were brewing beer which had ergo on it, or ergot, and this is like LSD, so they were actually kind of had this, they were accidentally creating these effects and altering their consciousness. And I guarantee that inspired them to start growing food, recording the times of the year and other such things. And so why they did it, we don't know, but they definitely did do it. And this is the earliest people on the planet to do so.
I want to speak also about those statues of like beings with 8 fingers.
Yeah, sure. There's some weird statues at Karahan Tepe especially. They've now found, in fact, every humanoid statue they found, not one of them has the correct amount of fingers. They will have either too few or too many. There's one large statue, I think it's structure AH, where it's like a square, it's like the size of this room, maybe a square enclosure. It's got 4 pillars in the middle. And one of them has got arms, they all have arms coming down the side, like you get at Gobekli Tepe there. Because the main pillars at the sides are big T-shaped pillars. You get that Gobekli Tepe, Karahan Tepe, and pretty much all the other sites. But they're kind of abstract humans. And so they have arms coming down, they're thin, and then the wide sides, they've got arms coming down and hands coming around, touching the navels, touching the belly button. And but the one at Karahan Tepe, it appears to have 8 fingers on each hand, which is very strange, to have extra digits like that. But actually there are traditions of that going back into the biblical tradition and earlier, where they find, and this is often related to the giants, because they have extra teeth, extra fingers, and things like this. So it's a very, very strange occurrence to find that carved on stone at Karahan Tepe.
Well, actually that was going to be my next question about the giants and the ancient builders or giant builders mentioned.
Sure. Yeah, well, the giants are kind of part of the mythology of the region, for sure. And if you look at later Sumerian stories, and also, records like the Book of Enoc, which is one of the lost books of the Bible, and they've also now found in Qumran, a book called the Book of Giants, and all these kind of talk about this kind of semi-divine teachers, really, who came down from somewhere, landed on this mountain, and taught the arts of civilization to the people there, and kind of developed settlements. They then developed agriculture. They even had, there's even talk about them being able to influence like biology, and like they were involved in kind of strange experiments and things like this. This is all recorded in the Sumerian texts, the Sumerian tablets. They seem to be referring to an earlier age. And that earlier age is the time of Karahan Tepe and Gobekli Tepe, 12,000 years ago.
Sorry, could you please specify which tablet, which text, so I can look it up?
Yeah, sure. No, for sure. So no, we're looking at the, there's various texts. Some of the best translations are from a researcher called Christian O'Brien in a book called The Shining Ones and the Genius of a Few. And I think they talk about the Nipper cylinder, I think that's what it's called, and this is specifically records huge amounts of information, and this is where he got a lot of his research from. Other texts have been discovered since then. People like Irving Finkel at the British Museum have been, decoding information about Noah's flood and how they built the ark. I'm more interested in the very early myths of the creator gods of the Sumerians. And the Book of Enoc's a great resource as well, because that talks about not really the Sumerians talk about the Anunnaki, whereas Book of Enoc, they describe them as the Watchers. So although they're probably the same people, this is what Andrew Collins and I and others have kind of concluded. And so, but in some accounts, they were giants, like the Anunnaki themselves or the Watchers themselves. But then they had a kind of race that came down later and joined in with them. These were called the Grigori, and these were giants. And then there was, some of them started breeding with human women, and they gave birth to the Nefilim, who were definitely giants. And then they spread all across the land, and kind of, this is why they had to create the flood, to destroy the Nefilim because they were out of control. They were cannibals, they were murderers, and they were thieves and things like this. And so all these sort of mythological stories seem to be related not only to giants, also to this possibly earlier epoch of Gobekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe.
I see. Well, also changing the subject a bit, because I've seen on your YouTube channel that you visited some megalith in the Balearic Islands in Morocco.
Yes, yeah.
So, well, some of these structures, les taules y taliots, are a mystery in the sense that we do not know why or what they are built for. So even though there are some theories, but I'd like to know what's your take on those as well.
Yeah, the Balearic, the Menorca's fascinating place. Weirdly, you have giant T-pillars there. So you have like T-pillars at Gobekli Tepe, Karahan Tepe, but you actually get T-pillars, giant T-pillars, with enclosures similar. It looks similar to Gobekli Tepe. They have one giant T-pillar in the center, although it's made of 2 stones rather than 1. And the Taliotic culture and the sites there are remarkable. They're much later. They're like Bronze Age. They're like, 2000, 2500 BC. And they're also very similar to what you find in Sardinia with the Nuragic culture, with the giants' tombs and the Nurages and things like this. But but Menorca's they have these kind of boat burials called nabetas. That they look like tombs, but they also look like boats turned upside down. And they're megalithic, hugely megalithic. And but you get megalithic sites in Spain, you get one over Majorca as well, all through the Mediterranean, spreading a vast distance all around the Mediterranean coast in Malta, Gozo, Sicily, Italy. You have polygonal cyclopean construction. So everywhere you go, you kind of find this.
Well, it seems to be actually something maybe a Mediterranean culture, because those ones in Morocco, I think I've read, they were praising kind of a cult to praise the bull, figure of the bull. Yeah, you have the bull cults there. Yeah, and through the Mediterranean, you get there in Sardinia as well. And you have the bull cult potentially at Gobekli Tepe as well, because they found some of the main T-pillars in the center of the enclosure, like bucranium, kind of almost like little necklaces carved on the stones. And there's lots of bulls, aurochs, and other such things recorded there. So it could go back even to the time of Gobekli Tepe. Hey, what a connection then. Well, finally, just to wrap this up, because you've traveled everywhere, so for you, what's the best megalithic site? What's the most special for you?
Oh God, there's so many. I mean, honestly, I've got like top 10. All of them are number 1. I think the most important site is Karahan Tepe at the moment. But there's a couple of others. But Karahan Tepe, because they've only started excavating it a few years ago, and what they're uncovering there is incredible. And they now know it's larger than Gobekli Tepe. Stonework is utterly unique and amazing. There's new discoveries that are going to be announced very soon. We've had access to see some of them, but not all of them. And we get a feeling that this is going to rewrite history of the planet, when this information comes out, especially with the winter solstice alignment that me and JJ discovered. There's genuine research needs to be done there. There's other sites around the world which are equally mind-blowing, like Baalbek in Lebanon, for instance. Absolutely incredible stones weighing up to 1,650 tons. I'm fascinated by the sites in places like Italy, for instance, and the polygonal walls, the cyclopean constructions all along the west coasts, like Norba and Alatri and others. But there's so many to choose from. But really at the moment, I think the most important place for people to visit is southeast Turkey for Karahan Tepe, Gobekli Tepe, all the sites. There's a site called Sayburç, which is being uncovered. There's Ayanlı Hoyuk, and because that is now in a time of discovery. This is like going back to the 17 or 1800s when they were discovering the sites, the pyramids in the jungles of Mexico, or the pyramids and structures in Egypt, where all the people were going there and getting blown away by what they saw because they were being discovered then. This is now happening in this current day, like today, in ancient Turkey. So I recommend people check it out, especially Karahan Tepe.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for speaking with us, Mr. Newman. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.